And I am your host, Sharon Rolph, and you are listening to Fresh Courage coming to you on the Transformation Talk Radio Network. And I'm here to help you live wholeheartedly, to live boldly and with meaning and no regrets. So I always like to remind you to daily do something that brings you happiness, health, and wealth. And I just started reading a book about money. And so that's the wealth part of that. And I'm surprised at how they link happiness and wealth together. So I'm curious to find out more about that. So if you've been knocked off your feet recently by a transition like retirement or becoming a widow, um, or you know somebody that has, well, I have been through some of that too, as far as feeling marginalized or invisible or useless. And now I want to help people experience the ideal to fit in, a place to fit in, to matter, and to make a difference. And I'm the creator of the Effortless Vitality Plan and the Longevity Blueprint. So our topic today is fulfillment, and kind of a subtitle: Imagine in your body what it feels like to be calm, grounded, and grateful. So DuAnne Redus is a wisdom seeker. I knew her back when I lived in Texas, about 2000, I guess. And DuAnne was born in the Texas Panhandle. She has degrees in business, psychology, and organizational behavior. And she left corporate America as a director of communications and PR to start her own business in 1992. She worked in corporate communications for 15 years before launching her independent career with Amadeus International as a change agent and an executive coach for Fortune 500 or 100 companies in the field of change management. And Amadeus is where I had met DuAnne. We worked international, or she worked internationally for 15 years before retiring to a small village in the Texas Hill Country. She has a weekly radio show on River Time on the local community station 94.1 FM and streaming on Wimberley Valley Radio.org allows her to tell the stories that reveal the head, heart, and guts of what matters in today's world. She has a storybook mountain as her first book, written at the preposterous request of a second cousin who died in 2006. Those relatives will sometimes hook us, won't they, DuAnne?
Oh boy.
Since then, she's dedicated her full time to bringing her message of transformation to others around the world. I help others break through the boundaries that are limiting them, she says. So welcome, DuAnne. I'm so glad you're here today.
It's so great to reconnect with a colleague in another
Yeah.
lifetime. And I'm so thrilled to see you're still doing the same work in a different place.
Yeah, I had some logo stuff made up for process and change management years ago. Never did much with it, but it was certainly a dream. So what are we going to learn today, DuAnne?
Well, you know, we're living in a world that may seem upside down to many. And curiously, I was hearing words like apocalyptic, and I looked up that word and discovered that it's a Greek origin word. And what it really means is the unveiling or revealing of something not yet seen. That shifted everything for me in thinking about this time, this sheltering in place, a more introspective place. But that totally gives me a different sense of how do we live now and what's happening. And so on a daily basis, I think it's important to realize even in hard times, we can live with ease, EASE. It may feel hard on the outside, but something is being revealed and uncovered that's going to give us a new place to rebound as we keep moving. So no matter what the circumstances of our life, we do have choice. And I always say that if we have an either or situation, we don't have choice. We need to have at least 3 options to have choice. So we can think of it, I've always heard, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And I say, sometimes we just need a bigger glass. We need a bigger container to allow all the things that, especially in retirement, we have time for and space for. So how do we hold that in our head? And I just want to kind of delve into that as we talk today.
Well, and your definition kind of helps me think of apocalyptics as something to look forward to and anticipate rather than dread.
Or be afraid of.
Yeah.
Stuck in fear about because of the assumptions or the connotations we've heard, maybe as children or as we were being, growing up. So that gives me a new way to hold that. And definitely during this pandemic, many things are being unveiled. The spotlight is being put on more of like the first responders and the first line workers who help us, the doctors, physicians, EMS, all those people we take for granted, but they are our lifesavers and our life givers. And so it's allowing us to put a spotlight on something we may have forgotten about.
Well, and even the food chain. Who knew that there was so much detail to the food chain?
Exactly. And something that's happening where I live in this small valley, more and more people are going back to raising their own vegetables, gardening and healthy foods, organic gardening that doesn't have a lot of pesticides on them. So it's back to that healthiness. And what does it look like when we can't get the food that is processed a million miles away from us? What's going to help our bodies thrive? And how can we keep going with what we have? So it takes go ahead.
Well, so I was going to ask, how do you actually define fulfillment? Should we?
Yeah, the way I define it is when I'm fulfilled, I'm calm inside my being. It's like I can just lie down inside my soul, just let go and go deep inside and just be. And that's sometimes I lie on the floor and I just drop my arms and just breathe. And so that gives me a physical sense. Another way I think about it is if we've seen hurricanes and tornadoes, but there's always that center still place. And it's like being there for me. I can just let everything around me spin and I can just be in the center. And sometimes I also, when I think about being fulfilled, I'm also energized to co-create within my community. That's what fulfills me, when I can connect with helping our community be stronger, focusing on where the art lies, what feeds me spiritually. Living close to nature does that for me. So I need my dose of daily nature. I need my still point. And I need something that motivates and energizes me to connect with others. So that for me is fulfillment. Now, if someone is different from me, maybe I know people who are engineers and scientists, and they're very focused on detail. Maybe it's numbers, maybe it's formulas. And for them to be fulfilled might be different. They may need to feel safe and secure and knowledgeable about their field. It may look different. And that's what I think is curious, because fulfillment isn't the same to everyone. And you mentioned wealth. When I think about wealth, I think about, is my community thriving? Are we sharing? Are we connecting? Um, are we preparing for the future? And someone who is very relational, fulfillment, they may feel unfulfilled right now because they can't meet their social needs. And so that connects us with different music and Zoom and other connective ways. So it's so individual and so subjective on what it means to truly be fulfilled. Yeah,
So, does everyone want to be fulfilled? That's a curious question.
it is. I find that many people focus more on what they don't want
Oh, yeah.
than what they truly want. So they may not know whether they're fulfilled, unfulfilled, or if they give a hoot. They may measure all that differently. So I think the first thing is and another thing is, what's important to me leads my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if nature's important to me, when I chose my home where I live now, one of the criterion was close to nature. So if I surround myself with nature and I live in it, that's a hint that something is going to fulfill me. If I had said, I don't want to be near blah, 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 takes me to a different place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's kind of sad actually that people know better what they don't want.
I think that, again, it's about how we measure things. When you and I, at least when I started my career, it was all about climbing that corporate ladder, and often that meant you climbed over someone or you didn't notice they were there. and, and as a female in a very heavily male dominated corporate environment, I learned I had to play games to exist.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fulfilling.
No.
That's a survival technique. That's a strategy that may keep you with a job, but it may not be the right job, may not be the right thing.
Well, and I'm so encouraged that the young people today are starting to get that message. They want to work for a company that has values and lives values. And that wasn't true in our day, DuAnne.
It's interesting you bring that up. I'm doing a research project right now. It's with young entrepreneurs and professionals between the ages of 25 to 35. And the patterns, I've been recording their answers with a set of questions. Every single young person I have spoken to mentions, I want my employees to be happy. I want my coworkers to be happy. I want us to do it together. If I'm successful, I will see them trusting me. That's huge. That is a total shift from when I started in the corporate world. Whether they're on their own in their own businesses or whether they're inside a business, when we used to teach teamwork, they can't live without teamwork. It's part of their being. That connective, how do we accomplish something together? So that's very uplifting for me.
It is for me too. I love collaboration. And when I think of the word synergy, that's another word I love because that's kind of the magic of bringing several people, things, ideas together. And when we put our heads together, new knowledge can be created. I actually got a certification in knowledge management. And what a difference to acknowledge that we all put what we know out on the table, and what can bubble up from that is something new. But you and I learned to protect what you know, because man, if you give them your secrets, then they may not need you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad
Yeah.
that's changed.
Well, and the other thing is, more and more people don't have a full-time job. It is the gig economy. And most people coming into the workforce oh, a high percentage are going to be part-time contracted labor. So that changes. So what's connected to that? And how do I think about health insurance and retirement when I don't have somebody giving it to me or building it? It's about me, and how do I decide about those things? So I think we're literally entering a new paradigm of thinking, and a piece of that that I'm finding so important is how do we build accountability into our into everything, into our relationships, whether they're one-on-one, into our homeowners association, or into our contract with a work situation. How do we hold one another accountable? You mentioned a team. It used to be you have a team, and the team is everybody puts in their percentage and it makes 100%. With accountability, I believe we should all bring in 100% accountable to a project or whatever. Then if you have 10 people on that, you have 1,000% accountability, not 100%.
Well, and that accountability helps build trust too. So we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about being empty or full. So stay tuned to Transformation Talk Radio. All right, I'm your host, Sharon Rolph, and you're listening to Fresh Courage on the Transformation Talk Radio Network. And my guest today is DuAnne Redus, and we're going to ask, what do you say to those who don't know they are unfulfilled or lacking, DuAnne?
Well, I think some of the signals of someone who is unfulfilled or feeling empty, they may have lack of energy, they may be apathetic, they may be worrying a lot about things that are really not important. They may not be connected to their body. They may be just ignoring but in a live body. So I think if you just begin to ask yourself some questions like, what is calling you? What gives you joy?
Mm-hmm.
What's your happiest day look like? What do you want more of in your life? Do you want more relationships? Do you want different relationships? Do you want healthier relationships? What makes you happy? What makes you healthy? And when we begin to focus on those things, we get closer to what's important to us. And when we touch on what's important to us, for me, I have a process that has been with me for years. And it's called the head, the heart, and the guts of what's important. And when I'm aligned inside myself and things are going well, what my head is telling me, my beliefs say about anything, what my heart says about the same subject, and what my gut or my intuition says to me, if those all go ding, 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 then I'm like, yes. If something's in my heart says, not quite getting it, no, I don't think that's it, then I know that I need to do some more inquiry in myself. If my head says, my daddy told me smile no matter what. If I'm hurting, don't worry, just smile. Now, that tells me, because I know different. I didn't know it then, but now I know I have a right to feel my own pain, to recognize it, and so I can move beyond it. So when those things are in alignment, I'm on a full go. And if something's twinging me, either in my head or my heart or my gut, then I know I need to take a look and to be with myself and ask myself some questions.
So you're actually giving voice to your center beliefs. I don't hear logic in there anywhere.
No. To me, it's does my belief support say I'm looking at a new board position. Somebody's asked me to be on their board. And I think about it and I go, well, I like the idea of being invited, but it's a something that I don't believe in. It's not about the environment. It might be about, I don't know what, but I go, ding, that doesn't urge me forward. It doesn't bring me joy to think about that kind of organization. So I'd probably say, I need to check that out and think about it. I'm not ready to say yes. So it's about getting to a full-bodied, centered yes, not taking 15,000 ways to analyze it. I can put what my thought is with my heart and my gut, and that shortens the process.
And it might draw you to do a little research.
It might draw me to do research inside myself. If I wanted to be asked to be on a board, what board would I like to be on?
Oh, okay.
So that shifts me to say, that's not it. Or I'm full-hearted and ready to jump in and support this board. If it's a library board, it might be different than, I don't know, the police academy. I don't know. They're just different things that urge me forward. It either pulls me to it or I want to run away and say, no.
So, what are some signals of that one is either empty or full?
Well, usually when I'm full, I have a sense of humor. I can laugh at myself. I can look at a situation and kind of see something different about it. When I'm empty, I struggle. I might be critical. I might be blaming. I might be stuck in some judgment about something that takes me off track. But when I'm in joy or I'm in deep satisfaction that when I first retired and sold one of my businesses, I was amazed at how wonderful it was to sit in my chair and look out the window and just watch and listen to the birds. I had been so busy creating this business and jobs for people and taking care of employees, I didn't have enough time. So that began to be a signal. And then I began to get signals. The first signal was I was on the board for the radio, and we had a late board meeting one evening in wintertime, December. One of the board members left his phone in the boardroom, and he was about to have a hip replacement. So I grabbed that cell phone. I went running out into a dark parking lot, and I tripped and fell and shattered my kneecap.
No.
Now that was like, hello. Hey, why are you running in the dark? Why are you running at all? But it was a signal. And I began to go, oh, maybe I need to slow down. So I think life gives us messages and signals if we pay attention. And two or three little things came up in my life that were synchronistic, but I went, it's that same message, slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to ponder, how am I going to exit this business? How am I going to sell it so I can slow down? My body is actually changing. I need more rest. I need to pay attention and acknowledge that.
Well, and then honor it.
Yes.
Give it what it needs. So
yes. So those are things. Sometimes people are in slow-mo and they need to actually energize themselves. Maybe too much TV or news or paying attention to sitting in a chair. I mean, after a while I realized, I think maybe I need to have more exercise in my life. So I created the exercise program that's to engage my body with my brain, to align my posture, to strengthen and stretch, and to energize. my whole physical being. So it
Yeah.
led me to something else to give me joy.
Well, and I love when I do my walk every day, I love whistling at the crows or the squirrels because the squirrels will, scoot out of the way, or watch what's blooming or what's gone to seed, or what's, that wasn't there yesterday and now it's yellow because the flowers have opened up. So that's all messages that help fill our spirit, isn't it?
Yes, we have an annual butterfly fest in Wimberley. And this year, there were 4,800 caterpillars that were put in little apartments with a food source, and children took them home and raised their caterpillars. And then 4,800 of them came back. And this year, we couldn't go to the butterfly garden and let them out because everyone was in sheltered down positions. And hundreds of cars drove up and gave back the cages, and they let all those butterflies out the same day. And
Wow.
talk about lifting the spirit
Yeah.
and seeing the colors and the flutters it's just a magnificent metaphor for how we can live our life.
Yeah. I looked just this last week about the migration of the monarchs. And is that what you're talking about, monarchs? No?
No, these were all kinds of the natural butterflies that exist in our valley.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And yeah,
That
so
might draw me to Wimberley. Let me know.
yeah, it's always in the spring. It's always in the spring. So I had the lady on my show who has been doing this for the last 20 years, and we had a great conversation, and they were able to show photos on
Okay.
their website. It was just
Uh-huh.
so much fun. So I always say, what gives you joy? How can you contribute to something that gives you joy? Because it's not all about me. It's about we.
What
And
fills you up? Yeah.
and we together can co-create something much bigger and more beautiful than we can even imagine yet.
So let's kind of go on the other side, DuAnne, and ask, what does it mean when people are out of balance?
Well, again, I think that our physical bodies, one thing I notice as we age, for instance, we can talk about balance in many ways. I can talk about just being able to align my posture. Because we work so much on these kinds of media and computers, the heaviest part of our body is our head. And we do
Hmm.
this. And that takes our whole physical structure out of balance. So, noticing what's physically in balance or out of balance, noticing emotionally, is my mood good? Am I depressed? Am I sad? Noticing that part of my emotional part of me. What do I need to pep myself up? Do I need to call somebody? That can give me a mood lift that says my emotional being can be out of balance. There's maybe I need to learn something new, read a new book, have a different conversation, join a book club so that I'm stimulated intellectually, mentally. And then, of course, spiritually, for everyone, it's so different. And so I always do a little spiritual check. How am I, what's my spirit doing? What does my spirit say to me? Do I need to do more meditation? Is my prayer time deep enough? What am I even praying about or meditating about? So I see balance in this big spectrum of many dimensions of being: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And those are just little checks that we can have with ourselves.
So what about if people were more fulfilled? What do you think it would look like?
I think that we're coming to a place, I almost see there can be a renaissance of new ideas about how do we keep our communities healthy? How do we have enough health care for all the people? How do we make sure everyone is fed and has nourishment? I think that we can begin to create healthier societies, cultures that depend on each other, not dependent, but interdependent,
Yeah.
that interweaving. I see that education can bloom so that every individual child gets what they need, not what a system says they must have. Um, the possibilities are endless. And for me, it feels like the timing is right on the cusp. We're
I,
coming, yeah.
I get so encouraged these last few weeks of families that I'm seeing out walking together, with their
Yeah.
stroller, with their little guy in their hand. It just warms my heart that we're getting back to knowing each other, as a family. And I'm hoping the dynamics change because we have taken this pause and reconnected.
So the rebound can be we want more of what we tuned back into.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want more of that. We want to have more cooking together, more family dinners together, maybe less processed food and more healthy organic food. We can redefine what joy looks like in the future. I think I have a sense it's going to be focused more back to local
Yeah.
communities. And we have an aging population. As you and I know, these baby boomers are hitting 70 in large numbers. How do we take care of our elders? How do we honor our elders and ask them for their stories? How do we look back on our ancestry and bring that wisdom forward? Maybe it's been forgotten.
I actually made a casserole this morning from somebody who I knew was in my church in my youth, and her daughter put a recipe on Facebook last week in her mom's handwriting, and I made it this morning. It kind of like that history that's there. So we're gonna take another break, and when we come back, we're gonna ask DuAnne about ease. She's created something called ease, and you're gonna want to hear about that. So stay tuned. Okay, thank you for coming back to Fresh Courage on Transformation Talk Radio. And I am your host, Sharon Rolph. And my guest today is DuAnne Redus. And she is going to tell us now more about her ease alignment process. What do we need to know about ease?
Well, first of all, I like the concept rather than pushing and pulling and
Yeah.
plodding and climbing. At this time of my life, I want ease. And so I describe if there's something in my life that is got me frittering about it, I can either change it, I can accept it, or I can leave it. And so what I like to say is let's explore. Let's have a little process and let's engage with a guide, someone who can just be not in your way, but can probe and help you get clear. So
Like a
the first one,
coach.
yep, like a coach. I call myself a wisdom guide these days because I want to bring the wisdom out of people and let them be their own guide. But first of all, it's to engage and then to align with what I really want in my life, to get clear about it at very different levels. Who am I? What's important to me? What's my life purpose? Big subjects, but in this time of life, we still have purpose. We still have reason to be. And then S is for stretching and strengthening our skills. Maybe we need to hone a skill. Maybe we need a different strategy. It's one thing to cope with life, and it's totally different to let things unfold. And so, am I just coping or am I thriving? And then the last E is to expand my thinking about something, to expand ways that are urging me to emerge and continue living, to live in the moment, to live in a way that pulls me forward. It makes me want to get out of bed every morning and always to explore those possibilities. I love your art blocks. Those are beautiful. So and that's just it, to expand our choices. It's that stuck in one or two choices is not a choice. So I want 3 to 5 possibilities, choices. And that takes sometimes don't just come like that. Sometimes you have to spend some time, and you may need a guide to probe and help you explore those. I
Yeah,
think that
go ahead.
some people, to explore something might be scary. I'll give you one quick example. When I started developing myself as a professional woman, I realized I wanted different skills. And I went on a women's empowerment weekend, and we had a ropes course. And one of the exercises was a tree trunk that had been stripped of all of its branches, and it was probably 60 feet tall. And on top of that was a flat disc. And the idea was you had on belay ropes and safety harnesses, and the idea was to climb on pegs up to the top, stand on that disc, and jump into the future. Well, I was able to get on top of that disc. I climbed up, took me a little while. I stood on top of that, and I could stand there and balance and balance and balance. But was I going to jump off? No way. And finally, the people at the bottom were like, jump off, it's our turn. I got so humiliated, and I just held my nose and jumped off. Huge risk. And what I discovered was I did not trust myself.
Wow, that's huge.
It set my life on a different course. I had trusted everybody around me, and I had not trusted myself at the deepest level. So, but something needed to move me to a new place. I didn't
And
know.
and now that's at the core of you.
Yes. So everything I do now is, if I hear a little voice that says, don't do that, you might not, blah, blah, somebody might not like it, I can go back to my gut, my heart, and say, yes, I trust myself. I have the strength and the power to trust myself. I'm making good decisions for myself. Yes, there might be a tinge of risk, and it's okay.
And I think a certain amount of that is also faith in yourself, trust and faith. That
Well, they go together for me.
yeah.
I'm not going to do something like jump off of that thing without a belay rope on. I'm not going to put myself in a situation I knowingly know is unsafe. Now, sometimes you may be in a circumstance that you didn't have control over, and you also have the way you respond to that circumstance. So sometimes it's just saying, but we're in a pandemic, but I want more. I want to still be on my radio show. I still want to. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create a way to be on the radio show. So we pre-record it for a few weeks until it's safe to be back in the live studio. So there's always the circumstance, and then what is my response to it?
Mm-hmm. So what is alive in you or supporting and encouraging you now, DuAnne?
We have several. Wimberley's a small village, so there's lots of input we have into the way it works. We scheduled, me and some people who are community oriented, scheduled 5 pop-up cafe Zoom sessions.
Oh, okay.
One of them was with businesses. One of them was with artists and independent people. One of them was with some nonprofits. And we all explored together. So here we are. What's going on? What do we need? What next? So creating that sense of what's next is something that is pulling me forward as a community. Yeah. My radio show that I so love on Rivertime, allowing people to tell their stories that are waiting to be heard. I so enjoy that. It just gives me so much pleasure. And I so enjoy being in my nest. and having time to myself, doing the research with young people. I'm going to create an online leadership program for those young people after I find out what they truly need to feel supported. So I can't imagine running out of things that keep pulling me forward, especially since I can be home more, you know?
So on these pop-ups, are they like weekly?
Yeah, we put out 5 of them, and then we gathered up who wanted more. So some of them are now bi-weekly. It just each group kind of created how often did they want to get together. So we facilitate a conversation that keeps unfolding. And
Oh,
so the idea is that when we come out of this and stores start opening and people get back out, what will make this community better and healthier and more vibrant?
and to look forward to a future, creating the future. So that gets you past all that fear.
Well, that everyone is taken care of, not
Yeah.
just a few. Yeah, everyone.
So what's urging you? I'm trying to, my note says wild, untethered, natural, free, seeking self. Tell us, what's that about, DuAnne?
Well, my kids have a home in Colorado. So I'm excited to go out there in the summer and do some hiking and see the
Ah,
wildflowers because I used to do that in Utah and I miss the mountains and the plateaus and the wildflowers that are up high. So I'll get to have a second spring. Um, you can walk where they live. It's a 15-minute walk into their little village. So I can walk across a stream and it's just a different environment. Um, Looking forward to that and meeting new people. But that's more of an exploration for me because it's totally different than Texas.
yeah, yeah. So, are you writing, working on another book?
I'm going to do a series of podcasts. I have signed up to maybe do a TEDx talk. So I'm working on that. I'm going to do 2 podcasts per month, May, June, and July, and see what comes out of that for me. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah, who knows? It's to be created. It's a future. Tell us how people can get in touch with you in case they have questions or ideas for you.
It'd be great. I think the easiest way is my name, DuAnne, DuAnne, as in David, U as in Sam.com, DuAnneRedus.com, www. And my blog is there. I have several other things tied to that. I want to hear the voices of people's hearts. I want them to tell me their stories. I'd love to gather the wisdom of so many of us and see what collectively comes out. So that'd be the way. I'd love to get some feedback on the blog that I write. It usually happens very quickly when I start sending it out.
I have noticed, see something you said though, triggered, and I lost it already. Um, so um, my website is effortlessvitality.org, and my little quilt blocks that I make are available on Etsy in the Quilted Petunia store. And I have several things on YouTube. Some of these podcasts and blogs are out there. And so there's a number of things to see there. My website has just recently been revised. And wisdom. How I relate to your comments about that is I've sometimes imagined being a hospice volunteer who goes in and collects the last words of wisdom from people that are in their last day or two. And sometimes the families can't hear that. And I want to, because it's usually things that are really important. and the nuggets of life, golden nuggets. So I looked into it, and they said my schedule was too unsteady to to rely on me, and so they signed me up to do one of the fundraisers. But yeah, I love reading hospice nurse stories.
Well, I have a couple of avatars for myself, and one is the wisdom seeker because I'm always seeking someone else's wisdom, and the other is my shamama. And shamama to me is just someone that I can say, "Tell me what to say, shamama. Be my wisdom guide." But
Help.
I love catching that caregiving moments of being with someone when they do have something important to convey.
Okay, and my audience, I want to encourage you to rate and review my show when you are in touch with what I'm producing here, and um, effortlessvitality.org. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of our audience today. And DuAnne, thank you so much for being here. We got a lot of wisdom from you.
Oh, it was great to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I loved you sharing your wisdom with us. All right, stay tuned to Fresh Courage.